Hello, MavMind Collective, and welcome to another episode of the HypnoSales Show. Today we're going to be talking about how to persuade with a story. If you're in a customer-facing role, you probably have learned the power of telling a story. Most of us like to hear stories, and there's a couple reasons for that. One is we don't want to just hear someone giving us a command or telling us what to do or telling us to do a certain thing or go a certain route, even though it may be for our own good. We don't like it when people tell us directly. What we like instead is to hear the story about how they told somebody else. So we're more persuaded, we're more open to hearing about an experience that's already happened, and we're more trusting of it as well, because if someone can relay a story that it happened to them and they can talk about the outcome and how it was better for them, we're more likely to comply and maybe go that route too. Because none of us want to be kind of put in a position where we have to decide to do something or take a certain route or make a decision, whether it's buying a product or service from someone or going to a next step in the process when we're engaging with someone to do our due diligence, to just finally decide to buy our product or service. None of us want to go through all that process like completely from scratch. We want to hear about how other people have done it, how other customers have done it like me, and we're going to listen to that. And it's sort of like you relay that story and that it becomes a metaphor of the roadmap that I should be on to make sure I don't make any mistakes. None of us want to make mistakes. None of us want to waste time. None of us want to do something wrong if it's already been proven by other people to be right this other way. So we want to know what that other path is. We want to hear those stories. We want to hear those stories, and we request those stories a lot of the time. So if in a customer-facing role, if I can present that story, I can make it easy for my prospects, my clients, my customers I can take them down the path that they already want to go on anyway. Now, in general, stories work for this purpose, and this is why we tell these stories in our customer-facing engagements, in our conversations, our Zoom meetings, any kind of engagement. We're telling stories at one point or another when we need to relay that guidance or give that consultation and help them to be trusting in us that this is what we should do next, the next steps, etc. But what I'm talking about here is a specific type of storytelling that has an extra added benefit of persuading, because it gets into the subconscious. This is using the subconscious elements and the things I've learned about hypnosis and how the subconscious works, the mechanisms in the subconscious mind. This storytelling works very well. And it's considered hypnotic language. It's another part of the hypnotic language set of communication tools. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, is reveal the three elements here. We have already got them written on the board here. And for those listening on the podcast, I have written down recitation as number 1, someone else number 2, and in the past number 3. And that's because these are the three elements that you want to incorporate in the storytelling in order to really persuade at the maximum 100% potency. Okay, the first is it's got to be a recitation, meaning the story that you're telling needs to be about a conversation that you're reciting to someone new, like your new prospect that you're talking to now. You're reciting a conversation you actually had with a previous customer before, in the past. That's number 3, right? It has to be in the past. It's already happened. And it has to be with someone else that's very similar to the prospect you're talking to now, or the customer you're talking to now, in a similar situation, for a similar use case, for a similar implementation, or a similar reason for buying, or whatever. Whatever that similar thing is, it's somebody else. It's not the person you're talking to. That's key. So someone else, this conversation happened in the past, and you're reciting what you said to this other person, this other prospect or customer, and you're also reciting what they said back to you. Okay? Now, the reason why this persuades is because of a couple reasons. One reason is the fact that when you're talking about somebody else, and you're telling somebody now that's standing in front of you on a Zoom call or in a live meeting, you're talking to them in person right now, currently, but you're telling them about a story about what you told or what this other person told you in the past. It's somebody else. The conscious mind, then, if you remember my other videos I've had, talks about how we get hypnotized, right? The critical mind can't defend against something that's happened in the past. So because the subconscious doesn't know about the past, it only knows now. It only knows this present moment. So by it being and occurring in the past means their subconscious can lower its defense and allow the message in, because it doesn't really care about something in the future or the past. Okay. So it's going to lower its defense. And then because consciously I'm talking about somebody else that I talked to in the past, it's not you, it's somebody else. Consciously, the critical mind will lower its defense as well. And it wants, in fact, it'll lean in more and it'll want to hear, like, what else did this other customer do? What else can you tell me about what this other customer decided, or what they said to you, or which direction did they go? What happened next? They always want to know what happened next in the story with this other customer, because it's not them, it's somebody else. Okay, so they automatically lower defense consciously and subconsciously because it's someone else and in the past. Okay, now the trick is when you recite what you said to them, when you recite that conversation, you want to embed the commands, and you want to use the word now, and you want to embed the commands that in that language, in that story, of what you want them to hear now in their conscious and subconscious mind. You want to get it into the subconscious and plant the seed into the subconscious when you're reciting the story. Okay, so you're using an embedded command technique and embedding it into the story, into the conversation, and you're disguising it as this other conversation that you had. Okay, so that's how it works, and that's the mechanism, and that's why this is very hypnotic and very persuasive when you do this. Okay, so as an example, I'll share an example of how this might work. So see if you can spot, as I go through, if you can spot my embedded commands, and think about what a prospect would be, if you were my prospect, how you would be listening to this, and how I'm distracting your conscious mind with the story, but subconsciously I'm planting the commands into your subconscious. Okay, see if you can spot it as I go along. Okay. So I'm glad you want to hear the story. I want to tell you the story actually about this other customer that I had the other day. It was a couple days ago, and they, just like you, were in a very similar situation, just like you are, where they're trying to decide if they want to buy now or buy next quarter. And I know you already want to buy my product, and they wanted to buy my product too, and they still do. But I was talking with them, and I was trying to just help them understand that maybe now is a better time to buy. They should buy now if they can find the budget. And this prospect was telling me, Maverick, I don't know if I can find the budget now to buy your product. I don't know if I'm able to do that now because I might have some restrictions. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. And I said, well, why can't you just go? And that's what I told him. I said, why can't you go find another department that maybe has budget, that they're not using it on something, and maybe you can borrow that part of that budget? Because don't you have to spend it? If you have it in the budget somewhere else, don't you have to use it or lose it, or do you get to roll it over? Most of the customers I work with, typically they have to use the budget now, and they have to spend the money now in order to buy the product that they want to buy now. And it sounds like you want to buy my product now, don't you? So don't you want to go find the money and find the budget from someone else? You should go try that. And he says, oh, I never thought about that. Let me get back to you. So a few hours later, he contacted me back and he said, guess what, Maverick? I was able to talk to this other department, and you were right. They do have budget, and I could borrow the budget. So I was able to bring the budget from their account into my account, and now I'm going to be able to use that to buy your product now. And I said, really, you're going to buy my product? Now you're going to be able to do it with their budget like I suggested? You're going to be able to do that? And he said, yes, we're going to be able to do that. And I'm so excited to finally be able to do. I'm glad you suggested to me to borrow the money now to buy it. And now that's going to happen, and I appreciate that. So, okay, so think about that story. Did you notice? I was probably overemphasizing because I wanted you to be able to pick up on the commands. But notice as I'm talking about the other person, the other prospect in the past, and what they're saying and what I'm saying, I'm able to put in the commands. Find the budget now. Buy my product now. Go get money from another department now to enable you to buy the product. Like I'm talking about this other situation that happened in the past, but I'm continually saying over and over, now, buy the product now. You can find the budget now. Don't you think you can go find the budget from somebody else? So you can buy my product now? So I'm putting those commands in there as I'm reciting the story. So it's a very persuasive technique, very easy to do once you practice it. And again, you probably don't want to overemphasize like I'm doing in this video, because I'm training you. I want you to see how it works. But you can do it more casually, and it can just be as casual as you want it to be, and not very apparent, because the subconscious will always pick up on that word now and associate whatever you're saying with that word now, and it will naturally hear the command embedded in there every time, whether you emphasize it or not. So in the subconscious won't, like maybe some of you didn't even notice it as I was doing until I overdid it. Maybe you were you wanted to hear the story, right? You wanted to hear what I was going to say about this other person in the past. And that's exactly what I wanted to happen. I wanted your consciousness to be distracted with this story that I'm telling you in the past. But the reality is, if you think about it, I'm actually telling your subconscious right now, as I'm reciting the story, this conversation about this other person, I'm actually telling you what to do right now. I'm actually giving it to you right now, and the subconscious is picking that up right now the whole time. So that's the way to persuade with a story, and specifically reciting a story. And I know you found this valuable, and I bet you're wanting to try this with a prospect or customer right now, or with a friend or family. You should try it and just see if even your kids, maybe you have kids and you want to persuade the kids, you can use this same technique, talk about some other kids, and you can use the same idea in any kind of communication, because again, this is a hypnotic communication technique. Thank you for watching. I know you find value in these videos now, didn't you? And if you, like me, are in a customer-facing role, I'm wondering if you want to watch another video now designed to help you get better at what you do every day. Or not. You don't have to watch another video if you don't want to.